Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have a returning good brother to the temple. Previously here for the introductory zine of Metanthropes, and now coming back with 3 worlds in the form of the Anthologies zine. The one and only John Legitamine. I told you I was going to get better at it this time.
Thank you.
welcome back, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, and I would like to say thank you not just for this interview, for the work that you've been doing, because last year when we were absolutely nobodies, you were the first who approached us for an interview, and this year when we are still nobodies, you were the first who approached us also this year, and I appreciate giving a platform for small creators to express themselves and talk about their passion, essentially. Yeah. Thank you.
It's what I've been doing. It's what I've been doing for quite some time, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. So,
yeah.
Now, obviously, Anthologies is not out yet. It's not going to be out for another 2 days, I believe.
Yeah, 2 days.
Now, obviously, this is another. I believe this is going to be another, not one zine, but it sounds like you're doing 3 zines with this Anthologies collection. Are they, when you do release them, are they going to be in separate documents and separate PDFs, or is it going to be an all-in-one?
So yeah, we have quite a lot to talk about Metanthropes Anthologies. Let's start about the very idea that this whole project, when it was initially imagined, I should say, were 3 stories. And I was 3 stories, 3 new worlds. And I was trying to find a way to cram them all into one zine. And it was my brother who suggested, why are you doing that to yourself? Just have 3 zines. And we're like, my brother who is QP, is also co-founder of Legitamine Games.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, okay, 3 zines in one zine quest. We can do that. These days that we're going through all the logistics and the prices and the stuff that I'm going to answer your question pretty soon, we figured that, okay, it's quite a challenge, and but we like challenges. And as for Metanthropes Anthologies, it will be 3 different zines, 3 different PDFs, and 3 different modules, each set in their own unique worlds, and all the details that we will get next, I suppose.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. And as I understand it, this one is primarily focused on creating 3 worlds for it, since the introductory zine had some hintings of world, but was largely setting agnostic and was more about a particular vibe, for lack of a better term. So was it a case where you ended up writing out one and then just the momentum just carried through with the other ones, or how did Anthologies come about?
Yeah, good question. So last year we just started out as a company. We haven't had we just had a few days, our 1 year celebration as a company. So we're pretty green in many ways. And personally, last year I had no idea if it was going to be successful or absolutely not. We had no idea if it's going to happen or not. So we couldn't really express ourselves. We were very, very worried, and we still much are, about surviving as a company, financially and all that good stuff. So we couldn't take any actual risks when it came to expressing ourselves. We chose a safe, I suppose, route, But yeah, this year we're all about, okay, now we want to really show our players what Metanthropes is all about. How do you connect this? What is for us this multiverse idea? Because this multiverse has been around for quite some time in the works of fiction and comics, and now recently with movies. But personally, we have been working on multiversal ideas and multiversal espionage and war and what can happen in any game, like a D&D, for example, could be. This is how we began playing D&D and conjuring up those ideas. And essentially, years go by, Metanthropes began its development, and I started creating these three characters that are like centerfold in the Metanthropes Anthology series. We call them our concert masters. And their stories were tied in many ways, but it's not just the three of those, let's call them hero characters, although one could argue they're quite the opposite. It's the worlds that they bring with them, the specific dimension tied to each of those three different timelines, and the different aesthetics and themes that are explored with each of these three worlds. But the interesting part, if I may say myself, is that the Anthology series sends players to missions across different timelines, and each zine has their own world setting, dimension, like Nether, Astral, and Aether, which I hope we will get into more later. Themes and other stuff that's discussed, but you can also combine them, and this is where the Anthology comes in, for a truly multiversal tale like no other, creating a non-linear saga which changes dramatically in the order that you choose to play those three zines, and greatly affects the endings, which are based on the stories. And if I do this to the first story with the hero character, it will affect the other two this and that way. So it's fascinating stuff.
Now, when you say that, that presents a interesting thing, because if these three worlds can be tackled in any order, and that results in certain story elements, that can potentially result in a bunch of permutations. And I'm guessing this is something you've somewhat accounted for. Obviously, you can't account for every potential permutation in this, otherwise this won't be a zine anymore. It'd be a programming language. But is it a case with each of the worlds, could they be tackled in a single session, in multiple sessions, or does it really depend on the table?
The way the play test, I think like a general rule, like a dogma, everything is predetermined on the table and the group involved and the preferences, but not just in my game, in all TTRPG games, I think. As for this particular question, well, I'm not a big fan of pre-made stories. So I haven't written much in my gaming as a player or GM years, and I usually, maybe I will check this particular spell in this book and that, but I really like to create my own. And with these anthologies, even if you take only one of those zines, it's not an actual pre-made story, much like the introductory was, which had pre-made dialogues and Act 1, this and this happens. Maybe you can permutate, as you call it, to some extent, but it was really like a pre-made story. But as for the Anthology series, I do not consider them pre-made stories. I consider them each offering a world in a very distinct and different environment and unique from the other two. They give you a very in-depth analysis of this concert master figure, which is a very, very important character with basically the most powerful Metanthrope of the entire timeline, capable of shaping the rhythm of the Cosmic Symphony. The Cosmic Symphony is our multiverse, and everything that has to do with multiverse we tie with an orchestra, overarching thematic approach, should I say. So to actually answer your question, we introduce an interesting world, interesting characters, interesting resolutions, and then you take it from there. This is how I see it.
Yeah, I can get that. So, what would you say would be the tones of the three worlds you're going to be doing? Nether, Astral, and Aether.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I'm all about that question. So, let's start with the order past, present, future. So let's start with Nether. So this is a tale set in the distant past, where lost lore, forgotten souls, and shattered histories linger in the darkness. And as players, we go to this particular timeline, this immersive world, and we meet to unveil the ploy of the concert master Akkadi. He's a brilliant madman, hell-bent on seeking forbidden knowledge at any cost, even if it means setting the whole multiverse on fire. There we visit locations like the Library of Alexandria, a hub for a faction of scholars, the Sumerian Kings, one of the multiversal factions of our game, which are lore keepers and safeguarding theorems and inventions erased by time. And as players, we will recover ancient scrolls, forsaken relics. We will face the ghosts of our past, figuratively, and what's the other one? Metaphorically, I think. Encounter eternal souls of the history's brightest minds, like Aristotle or Plato or others. I don't want to spoil NPCs. And looming incarnations of annihilation, the personification of void, which are spreading the black flames, and whoever is engulfed forever forgotten. I don't know if that answers any real questions, but I think it sets the stage nice for what this particular zine entails. So this one is like the darker, I should say, of the three, but it's not like about it. It has a lot to do about death, but it also has to do about history and civilization, lost lore, and the inventions that the whole actual idea started with the burning of Library of Alexandria. It was like an ancient city who, as I've read, when you were traveling there by ship, it was like the law that if you have any scrolls, you have to give them to the library, they will copy them, and they will give you like the copies. And in this way, they had like all the basic knowledge of the archaic world. And now take this idea into like a multiverse and think of a faction of Metanthropes capable of traveling between different timelines, but having HUDs, I'm not sure, like nexus points, should I say, like pinpoints in locations, which are like the Library of Alexandria and some other, which I'm not going to spoil, but the Library of Alexandria, the centerfold, where if you go to the timeline and you go to that particular and enter the nether dimension, you know that you will find the others. And there, we just don't store knowledge from this timeline, but we store knowledge across all timelines and in analog form, like in scrolls and stuff like that, in order not to be hacked or, with digital means, but with some other, possible Metanthropes or factions out there with, it's like we start to set the stage for what we see the grand storytelling of Metanthropes taking over years, possibly decades. Personally, if I spend the rest of my life working on this game, let's go. The question is if we can make it there, as we can survive there, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. I know with some of the previous projects you had, like with the protagonists, you had them as not necessarily named, and with the NPCs, you had your own approach with them. I'm guessing it's a similar thing. Would this also include some maps like you did with the introductory zine?
Yeah, so the similarities with introductory zine are the maps. Yes, each world will have their own map and backside variation. We'll have pre-made NPCs, and the thing described about how it's not a pre-made thing, I don't want to go over that again. But as for the characters, the decision of having like 10 pre-mades who are not like completely finalized is an interesting one. I'm not sure, like I've received both, I wanted a fully pre-made character, why do you give me the options? And some others appreciated the modularity of it. But for this particular campaign, even though the core game will be released next year, May 2026, we, through the website and the module, we will offer all the content right now, and you can create your own character following the normal character creation So yeah, suppose you can take the premates of the introductory and build upon them and continue, or you can build any character imaginable without any limitations of the game, even though the core game hasn't yet been released.
Yeah. I can certainly get that. Now, with that in mind, I wanted to shift towards Astral.
The next world, I suppose. Let's switch towards Astral. So yeah, everything changes. Let's see how they change. So this is an alternate version of a modern world, much like our own. Should I say like a twisted reflection, where this particular Earth, this globe, spins around the whims of a rogue Collectiva faction member, that's a different multiversal faction, who claims that have found a secret door to a pocket dimension within Astral Dimension, which wherever you go, all your wishes come true. So meet the concert master on Neiros, waiting for you in a glass tower, looming over a megalopolis filled with lucid dreamers, corporate sharks, and monks lost in a meditative trance. So this is a world where everything spins around dreams, subconscious, and all the like medication that helps you sleep, like meditation that helps you sleep, like or imagine, because like I think kind of all three of them are maybe dystopian worlds or twisted reflections. Imagine like the rich have the best dreams with the medication, whereas the poor of the streets cry every day with nightmares. And all of this has happened because the concert master Neiros, which is the most powerful Metanthrope there, with a totally different array of meta powers than concert master Akkadi of Nether. This one is a manipulator. This one is all about astral. It's all about my dreams and telepathy and psychic stuff. So he has made the entire world spin around that. So the players will find themselves in an intricate web of inter-timeline politics and backstabbing and espionage maybe. And as for the astral dimension, it's a realm where you can find dreams and stray desires, and your very thoughts, feelings, and imagination reshape the landscape. There, depending on your roles and your characters, the backgrounds, and all that good stuff, you may meet and fulfill your deepest desires or face your worst nightmares. And it brings a very interesting question to the one who faces all the psychic entities and the incarnated deities of found astral. What would you do if you had an unlimited wish? So there's a very specific prize in that type of story, an unlimited wish, which is always a fascinating concept.
And with that in mind, when it comes to that whole concept of unlimited wish, even though it's in a more modern setup, I'm guessing you're gonna have a bit of guidance on how that kind of thing can manifest itself within a given adventure. Not necessarily this is how it has to manifest, but suggestions.
Although I cannot answer in a non-spoiler way more about this unlimited thing, because in the end it's the end of the story. Whatever happens, who gets it, is it true, all those things are up to the grabs in the story. What I can kind of answer you about is the scale of power in this game, which is like a main theme for me. With the classic expression, there is always bigger fish on the pond out there, how you call it. With that in mind, so you play characters which from day one, session one, you are a metanthrope, you are a meta and anthrope, so you're like beyond human, and you have all the meta powers, aka the superpowers essentially imaginable from all works of fiction. And you don't have limitations to them. It's not like Vampire the Masquerade where you have to spend blood or magic, mana, call it as you will. The only limitation of a metanthrope is their imagination and something like a critical failure, I suppose. And with that in mind, so you feel you're supposed to be high stats, lots of reloads, destiny at your side from day one, level one. what happens in mid, what happens late, what's like epic in this game. So there are lots and lots of scale. And imagine all these worlds that I'm just describing are a singular timeline, and they have like this concert master who is like an immensely powerful metanthrope, and it is the most powerful metanthrope of the timeline, but not necessarily even the most powerful being of that timeline. And now we're talking about a multiverse that has multiple timelines and has like collective hive minds which operate across like multiversal collective hive minds. And this game, even the core that will be released next year, has meta powers up to level 5, the introductory have up to level 3. Now we have like the full rule set, full content of the core game. But from day one, when I started thinking about it 10 years ago, and when actually full-time development 5 years ago, I created a game with up to level 10, reaching like true omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, and all that. IMBA, OP, end game plot device mechanics. So this is how I see the overarching level. So many layers, and although this particular campaign, Metanthropes Anthologies, will introduce lots and lots of cool stuff and powerful characters, world breakers really, it pales in comparison with what we have in store in like, should everything go well, like 4 or 5 years from now, something like that.
Yeah, I can get that. And the last one and the most abstract of the three is Aether.
Abstract is the first word I hear from someone outside the team tied to it. Interesting, abstract. So let's talk about Aether and making it a bit more I don't know the word of opposite of abstract. So Aether, witness a future yet unformed. You're set out in a multiversal mission in the far, far future and in a distant, distant exoplanet. So as you can guess, we're already setting a totally different tone. There and then, the players will find themselves in a climax of an epoch as two cosmic forces, much like the ones that we described before, like this is all about the scale of power. It was a good transition between the previous discussion. So two cosmic forces clash for absolute control over the entire timeline to become the singularity. So now on the one side we have a concert master, Samsiel, representing Metanthrope potential, a testament to Metanthrope potential. Or on the other hand, a cautionary tale to what happens with unchecked Metanthrope, unchecked meta-powered, reaching their limits. So this is a contest, not just to become the most powerful Metanthrope, but the most powerful being of the timeline. And now, the scales are raised one click ahead. But on the other hand, we have an unstoppable force of nature, a phytomorphic alien hive mind spreading across solar systems, assimilating all organic life in its wake. Again, as I said earlier, this one pales in comparison with a multiversal hive minds assimilating everything, but it's a galactic threat, not a multiversal threat. But in this apocalyptic battlefield, we have the Technocratis faction, another one, who sends you into an alien world where the very flora and fauna turn against you with the crazy weather effects, bizarre hazardous environments, massive alien leviathans, living holograms, and remnants of human technology scattered across eons, because we're the far, far future. And this story is all about teaching you the true scale of power and witnessing how celestial wonders and cosmic horrors can threaten to fracture the factions of Metanthropes of the multiverse and send the multiverse into the cosmic symphony into a dissonance.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, are you familiar with a book called All Tomorrows, or a story called All Tomorrows?
Can you repeat that?
Are you familiar with a story called All Tomorrows?
All tomorrow? No,
Yeah.
not at all. Actually,
Because with some of the concepts you mentioned, that was one of the things that ended up coming to mind, which is
here, let me write that down.
yeah, is a
All
story
tomorrows.
that takes place over practically billions of years, dealing with um, not just human expansion into space, but also the growth, development, and decline of dozens of different species over billions of years across spacefaring civilizations.
Sounds fascinating.
Oh.
It reminded me of how you call it, The Foundation by Isaac Asimov, which has like a generational storytelling, like
Oh yeah.
crazy downtimes.
Mm-hmm. Although, yeah, and I know that there's a TV series adaptation of Foundation on Apple TV, but I don't have Apple TV, so I can't vouch for it. I know that almost dodged a bullet, because at one point it was going to be done by Roland Emmerich, which sounded like a joke, and then it was done by Jonathan Nolan, which is the version that's
Oh wow, I know Jonathan Nolan. Yeah.
is the version that's out there, and is probably better than whatever Emmerich was going to do, but that's not exactly saying much. Given how Emmerich does science fiction, has no concept of science. I haven't forgiven him for The Day After Tomorrow. But
Okay.
but speaking of that, I've often talked about the whole concept of Appendix N, or inspirational material. When it comes to these three worlds, what sort of books, what sort of stories, what sort of shows, games, what have you, served as inspiration for the development of these three worlds, since they are distinct from each other?
That's a very good question. To be absolutely frank, I haven't had the time to think of myself, so I'm not going to speak like the influences of the Metanthropes as in general, like, extraordinary people or ordinary people with extraordinary powers. This concept, it's less interesting maybe than this particular question. So let's go with Nether. Obviously, the story I told before about the Library of Alexandria being like a hub of information in the real life world, and take this story to this concept of a multiversal storytelling. How does that apply? I'm also fascinated by a lot of real life lore, but not like real life fiction, should I say. I think very close words is inspiration for this one. For example, the Sumerian kings, it's not like my word, they're actually fiction, supposedly, unless you're into some theories, conspiracies, should I say. They're like the cradle of civilization began in Mesopotamia, and all these stories I'm gonna say like real life stories. I'm not a historian, obviously, so apologies if I ruin everything. But this is exactly where Nether and this entire story and the Majesty Academy and everything, and some main world building stuff for Metanthropes were built. They're like first of all, there's like, again, okay, I don't want to spoil stuff for the story, so I will try to avoid some. But the thing is that there were like tables, like huge tables of list of kings who were supposedly have lived like Alganaganar has lived like 35,000 years, influencing humanity over the first ice age and something like that. Like, okay, this is fiction, most likely, but like the Sumerians back then, like 5,000 years ago, wrote fiction about what happened 30,000 years, like crazy interesting stuff. So building about that, okay, what if they're real? Like, again, not in real life, I'm not totally crazy, but what if they're real in my game? The Sumerian kings were actually Metanthropes, immortals, who travel through back in time or through Nether and go to timelines to create those hubs like Library of Alexandria, or B, guide, safeguard humanity throughout and influence civilization, and create test timelines of what would happen. Again, avoiding very narrowly spoilers. So I think this is a good answer, which for the first Nether. I don't know if it satisfies you.
It certainly works, and I know I mainly listed things like books, games, and the like for something like Appendix N, but that's just a catch-all. That's just the icebreaker, as it were. The real thing is what sort of things provided that inspiration, because nobody creates in a vacuum, and anyone who does, show me the man, I'll show you the liar.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Astral, what would be some of the inspirations that led to that?
Yeah. I have to say also, I would like to add something for these two, going a little bit back to Nether. As for the the Concert Master, Magistrate Akkadi, who has many names among some of the Sumerian kings' names, Christopher Lee's portrayal of Count Dooku was a heavy inspiration for that character's roleplay, and the look of a brilliant madman. I always imagine like Christopher Lee's, rest in peace, Sir Christopher Lee's, and this is like an inspiration. I should include it Christopher Lee generally as an actor, but I think the closer visual is Count Dooku from Star Wars. And as for the Concert Master or Neiros, because the story are very this character is very important to the story. Besides power level stuff, they have depth, and through their background, the narrator, which I'm gonna read for them, will get a lot of ideas of what's coming next for the multiversal stuff, and I don't wanna again spoil the pleasure. As for Oneiros, the roleplay was based on Inarios from similar names from Expanse. Just the roleplay aspect, again, similarly with the Christopher Lee inspiration for the other one. As for the world and the mechanics and the themes, the first thing that comes to mind is Vampire the Masquerade's astral realm, astral domain, how they called it. I suppose the astral is a concept that exists far before games, I suppose, storytelling, it goes back way in many civilizations and human stories. But the first time I, as a teenager, discovering RPGs, got inside astral, as a player, was through Vampire the Masquerade, with the whole silver thing that it has, and many ideas that this is how all the thoughts and feelings are come to life. And I started creating one as such realm for my game, incorporating also all the fables, stories, everything fictional basically that any psychic sentient mind creates, send it over there. For example, all the Hercules, for example. Hercules exists in the astral dimension, not in Nether, because Nether has the spirit of the dead, but he wasn't never alive, Hercules, but in astral exists as a spirit. And take also the fantastical friend you had as your child, or your worst nightmare, really, are all spirits now, and actual entities that you create and you influence with your thoughts and desires where you go there. So yeah, I think the first time as a player that I encountered all this stuff was in Vampire the Masquerade's astral, and I tried then to add more elements that fit best to my game, but I didn't want to name it something else just for the sake of being legit, should I say. This is the astral, this is exactly what I want to be, just the version of my game. So shout out to Justin Ankili, I suppose, from the VTM team.
Yeah. And this concept of the collective consciousness, it's certainly been a theme in a lot of stories. I suppose one of the obvious ones I could bring up is through the Looking Glass, if I want to go with the classics, because there's a decent argument to be made that everything that happened in that story, or Alice in Wonderland, or that weird ass version of the story that was done in Czech puppet style, was all in Alice's head. I.e., it was the whole story was one giant bad trip, but that it. But because of that, there's been plenty of stories over the centuries of abstractness where the collective unconscious starts either bleeding over or people start seeing it in some form, and something like this would certainly be no exception. Um, I keep and for whatever reason, when it comes to this sort of thing, I always end up thinking of Planescape. You know, the old module
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah, I played only the PC game Torment, but I love the sigil and all the world building, and I think it is one of the inspirations for Metanthropes in general. Planescape, yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly see it. I'd also probably invoke some of the more surrealist art that I grew up studying when I was considering being an artist, and and if I wanted to go the more horrifying route, I could always bring up Wayne Barlow's Hell collection, which is a interesting depiction. And that's
not really familiar, actually. Well, you drop a couple of names that I'm not going to pretend I know them all, but if it brings question, I will tell you.
Wayne Barlow is a concept artist who did a very surrealist and very strange depiction of hell with a collection of pieces. And when it comes to that sort of abstract, that's something that comes to mind. Obviously, things like Salvador Dali's work, especially the persistence of memory, can also be invoked. I'd say that's a pretty obvious one.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, what would be some of the inspirations behind Aether?
All right. Starting with the concert master Samsiel. Okay, so if this game makes you feel so powerful from day one and all of us are like that, what happens to like the really gifted and talented ones? But what happens then to the paragon of this kind, of our Metanthrope kind? Paragon, I suppose, with the D&D version 3.5 or something version, like which is one of a kind and the best of your kind, theoretically. So, in this, the concept here is what like I started to think how it's like to create something that not only has the longevity that the immortal Concert Master Academy might have in Nether, but also like absorbing other meta powers and being solar powered by a blue star and having like, I don't know if you've seen the trailer or not, but it's like Samsiel's first prime meta power. The prime meta power was like biomorphic powers and then enabling like complete reconstruction of bones and skin, reaching up to a level that Samsiel just uses those tentacles which can expand infinitely, but if it's not that enough, she can also open portals, and by opening portals and sending the tentacles in, essentially you're very close to omnipresence. Yes, omnipresence is like one of the true end game stuff, and which actually you're present everywhere and you know everything. You know, this is like not playable, but it's like a character who truly pushes to that. But the reason, I think, okay, I shouldn't go to the more story. I should answer the question about inspiration. So yeah, the inspiration is trying to figure out how a character like that could be. About the other part, the unstoppable hive mind, the phytomorphic and an assimilating card, the type of alien. There are lots of inspirations from the Borg, from Star Trek, which are like, they don't really have passion. They're not like, they don't hate you. They are like a force of nature, essentially. Even though they're super tech, they are a force of nature, similar way that this phytomorphic alien. And it also represents, I suppose I started writing this character, should I say, although it's like an alien hive mind, this character around COVID. And it was like literally a disease spreading, and maybe like before we actually, defeated COVID, like in the early days of COVID. And there was this looming threat for all of us in humanity. If we're gonna be one of those timelines that game over, contagion, GG. So this is how I started to write about those things, like a you cannot hate it because it doesn't hate you, but then again it will assimilate you, no questions asked. Also, inspirations, I suppose, are like mixing organic and I suppose they're not phytomorphic, but I think lots of aliens come in mind from the Tyranids, or more so, I should say the Zerg, because I know the Zerg much better than I know from StarCraft, than I know the Tyranids from Warhammer. And what else? There are so many alien collectives that I can think of. So obviously many Star Trek and sci-fi in general. There's inspiration there. If I wanted to say anything else, it's like one final is like the chiaroscuro, like a chessboard of two super grandmasters playing chess, and then one of the pawns of the whole, like one of each side of the pawn, something like that. I'm just thinking of it, this is raw, is the players. So what happens if we have like this super grandmasters control the rest of their pawns, but only one of them is controlled by the players? Is it enough to defeat the enemy king? Something like that. Again, pretty raw, but I like how it goes. Maybe I will write it down and add it to the campaign page. I still have time.
Yeah, but I think one of the reasons why a hive mind shows up a lot in fiction is it's tapping into a very primal fear, that being the fear of loss of identity.
True. Yeah. And this is that's a nice catch, actually, which I would like to shout out our cover artist, returning for 3 new covers, which we haven't revealed yet. We will reveal on the launch. I have them now, but I cannot show them. Shout out to Wermund Gray, who said that Samsiel has a lot of like identity fractures, again without getting to the spoiler about her background or about like a generational story. And the first image she created, which is the thumbnail now, which you can see, has this character split their head actually, and inside you can see the blue sun and her other form with the tentacles. So loss of identity, very good catch. I should definitely add it to the themes of Aether. It's one of the themes. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I can
like that.
I can certainly see it. Now, with these 3 worlds, what would you be shooting for as far as the page count for each? I know the page count's got to be low because Zine Quest and all that.
Well, I think with my research and asking around, some earlier rumors I was very concerned last year about Zine Quest. Oh, you shouldn't exceed 42 pages or 6 like that. That's actually true. There's no actually rule, and it has been bypassed. I've seen Zine Quest with 100 pages and they didn't go to jail, if you know what I'm saying. Generally you don't want to go in the staple format above 6 or 64 pages because it doesn't bend well or something. But you raise a very good question, which was one of their concerns of the strategy of this campaign, how it could work, the trick, and so and this and that. But it is you also offer me a very good transition to talk about the content creator exclusives of this campaign. And it ties very well with what you asked, because we want to offer, and we really invested a lot in this to make this work. I hope it does. To give all the tools for our backers for this campaign exclusive only to create content for the game, and both for the VTT and the printed format. So you can actually create stuff that goes to the VTT, tokens, animations, I will get to them, but also you can create stuff which occupy real estate in the actual zine. So if you buy the physical product, there will be a let's say, a part of the zine. I cannot speak about pages right now, exact numbers, which is going to be like player content. So, for example, I think I can safely reveal to you exclusively that, for example, if you choose to create content and lore for Nether, you create inventions and lost theorems and lore. If you go to Astral, you create a straight dream and a desire and something like that. And on the Ether, you create flora and fauna and describe how alien environments you create, like the real environment. So this is like paragraphs of descriptions that will be forever eternalized in the print form of the Anthology series as a print, but also as modules with animations and tiles and custom tokens and even custom like monsters, antagonists. So as for the page count, I don't think I should say anything, but let's say what my initial thought was. Let's say that if my limitation was really 60, I would go like 40 I create and 20 I want the backers to create, the community. But I think, so, okay, why if my own ideas are like 60 pages and then I'm sorry, we don't kind of fit your ideas. No, I will literally go to a soft bound, how you call it, like soft covered bound type of book. It's like up to 150 pages or whatnot, and go with that. So I don't want to be limited in the way that we felt limited last year. Oh, we shouldn't do that, we shouldn't risk that. We're taking many risks up to like the 3D. I suppose many people are like, why are you having 3D cutscenes in a ZineQuest project? You guys don't mind? First, I'm not thinking it as a ZineQuest project, I'm thinking of the Metanthropes project and its next step. So the amount of budget, let me worry about that. If you like it, that's another subject. I hope you like it. But yeah, we want to include the players' ideas. We're investing a lot in it, both virtually and in print.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. And I know that the Kickstarter is going to be launching in about 2 days. What are you shooting for as far as the length? Are you going for like 28 days, 30 days?
It's exactly 3 weeks. We call them 3 unforgettable weeks. And it's not like a marketing spiel. Well, I hope it is, but it is. We really mean that, because besides our campaign, which is going to have like beautiful art, top artists, which if we have time, I would like to go over to the team if we have time, but I would like to say that it's going to be like a fascinating experience, which includes, above others, lots of live events and live interaction with backers, a podcast with many others. I think the 10 that I was personally most interested or something, or contact me back. ZineQuest other creators. We're gonna have like a live podcast with Q&A and whatever, with Twitch, with other creators, and I'm very excited and happy and humbled that many, which I consider big names for the ZineQuest, were the first who said yes. And shout out to them. We will get to them at some other point. And live events such as like a live boss fight with Samsiel, like the tentacle animated token that we have. And so you can join Twitch and go and fight here and see what the game's about, and have like, I don't know, is it like, again, these are low risks that we're taking because we haven't tried them. I personally have not even seen them. And I'm not bragging. Personally, it's good to brag a bit. I'm not concentrated on the bragging, but it's going to be 3 unforgettable weeks, which is going to require a lot from us. And I hope we make it spiritually and physically and all that stuff. But yeah, if we have time, I would love to also speak about the team. But yeah, I could speak all day. It's up to you.
Yeah, and as much as I'd like to, we did that, we'd be here for hours on end. But I'll certainly be looking forward to seeing how the project manifests. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my temple and enjoy the madness that happens here. And of course, anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.